Welcome to another episode of Shattering Glass and Heels. Joining me in today's segment are incredible people who I am honored to be considered their sponsor or mentor. But more than that, where our relationship has evolved as friends. Andrew Lee, Everald Phillips, Jenny Huang, and Lauren Lolo Stanton. Thanks you guys again for jumping on this segment. So I really wanted just to talk a little bit about mentorship and sponsorship and, really talk a little bit about kind of just best practices or what can you, bring into insights to other people when you think about mentorship and sponsorship. So I talk a lot around, like in the book and my own experience, that the finding a mentor and finding a sponsor were kind of just organic things that just happened to me. And it wasn't like I knocked on someone's door and say, hi, would you be my mentor or would you be my sponsor? It was just really kind of organic relationships. And those are really some of the most important relationships that have been instrumental and fundamental to my career. And I just really felt that my biggest mentors always told me to pay it forward, to lift as you climb. And that's been such a true value of me as a person. And so wanted to really just kind of ask you guys, right, like, in terms of mentors and sponsors, what has that impact in your life and how did you kind of find that kind of organically within your journey? And so maybe I'll start with like Andrew and Everald, and, because to talk a little bit about our relationship, because our relationship is that we worked in the same company together. And I think my relationship to you guys, definitely I was a sponsor first before that turned into that kind of mentorship. And maybe in your own words, kind of think through that or think through other mentors and sponsors and how that relationship had evolved. And so I'll start with you, Andrew.
Yeah, I have to go back a ways here. But I think you and I got connected kind of by chance. We kind of happened to be in the same place at the same time. I think like I had a badge for the building that we were working in or something along those lines. But I think like our relationship really grew, I think, out of one, I think me being vocal about, hey, I want to learn these things. These are some gaps in like my development or like interest that I want to pursue. I didn't know you at the time, Christine, but your reputation kind of preceded you. You're kind of like an expert, in different things from, marketing strategy or, technology point of view. And I said, like, here's maybe an opportunity for me to learn and try some things and see if I kind of belong in this space. And I think over time, it just also, for me and you, I think you prioritize being a human first and being like, it's not all about the work. It's not all about, playing the game, but we have interests, we have things that we care about like outside of work. And I think we both kind of tapped into that a little bit, which made the relationship all that the more stronger. So I hope that answered the question, but I think that's kind of how like we came to be and how it kind of evolved over time.
Was it
I'd
the
say.
fried bologna sandwiches? It was
Yeah,
the
yeah, it
fried
was.
bologna sandwiches,
And
among
then
other
Christine also
things.
found out that I'm kind of like a baby foodie, or at least I'll eat anything. So that made, dinners and things to do a lot easier. So that worked out.
That's really cool. No, I think that totally makes sense, right? If I look back in our relationship, it was like, you were so quiet. You're like the dark horse in like the project, and then, I would give directions, and you're just so quiet, and then everyone's like, oh, did I get this right? I'm like, nah, you didn't. I'm like, Andrew goes, did I get this right? I'm like, yeah, you did. Where did you come from? Like, and it was kind of like born out of the fact that I was like, wow, I discovered, you know, talent that, that you didn't even know that you had. And it was kind of just, to me, was so exciting. And it was like, to kind of build on that and to really just see your career kind of go. And so I think that was really the exciting part of our relationship, and how that has really, really, truly changed. So, Everald, I'll go to you. So, you and I have also
Yeah.
some great travel adventures.
No, we do. And, for me, the way I see it, it's all about humanizing the connection and really diving deep into, really understanding that sometimes it's not about work. Sometimes it's not about, how smart you are within this space as a thought leader. So when I saw you, I was like, she's a thought leader, right? She knows she's answering really challenging questions for clients and really helping them understand how to drive value across their whole omni-channel approach. But I saw our relationship as being valuable because it was around culinary experiences, right? It was not just about work. It was around, hey, you love great culinary experiences. Let's enjoy those experiences together after work, right? Let's enjoy those experiences before we have to go into a very large meeting. And I found that to be the cursor and the connective point of the relationship and expanding out, right? Like we've traveled together and had the ability to, really tap into driving expansive thought leadership of, across the industry, but really being able to focus on it's not just about work, it's about building out the relationship, it's about enjoying the moments. And that's why I see mentorship and sponsorship in general. It's not procedural, right? It's not, hey, am I doing good in work? Or hey, am I the best person to finish this task? But it's, hey, how can we build a relationship and how can we build upon diving deeper into that relationship and really finding the connective points between each other? Because I do believe, regardless of who you are, what you do, there's always a connective point because we're all humans at the end of the day. So that's what I would say in general. And, our relationship started off as really focusing on sponsorship and mentorship and really helping navigating how to think as a thought leader and how to think as someone that's answering really challenging questions for clients, but really expanding out and really driving the connected point between our own personal interests.
Thanks for that. So I think for Andrew and Everald, it was a little bit easier because we were in the same place, right? And so there was a natural connection point or natural way for our paths to cross. So I'm going to turn to Jenny, right? Because you and I have never been in the same company together, but it's a different kind of network that also got us together. Maybe you talk about your our relationship, our experience, and kind of what that connectivity was. So go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah. So personally, I am just a very curious person. I like to learn about people. I love to learn about their lives, and because of my curiosity, I know a lot of people. I get to know a lot of people and a lot of good people, and I'm a very natural connector. I like to connect people. So because of that, and I heard everyone was telling me, you need to meet Christine Duquet, and I I started to wonder who is this Christine Duquet, and then one of my friends who actually made the introduction, and then I found out that Christine and I both went to Oberlin College, and we're both alumni, and we're both once a musician, now a marketer. We have so many similarities, and our energy just match. So that's the background story of how Christine and I know each other. But generally, in terms of finding sponsor or mentors, I'm a big believer of just finding the good people. Surround yourself around good people, and good things will happen organically.
Awesome. Yeah, that's. I think we'll dive a little bit into that piece around personal chemistry next. But I love how all of you guys say, "Oh, someone told you to come meet me." Now I'm just curious about what rumors are out there about me. And I love the fact that Lolo is here because Lolo knows nothing about me. Other than the fact that she sees me in the gym, in and out every day, like sweaty and gross after coming out of spin class, and just knows, oh, this girl just moved in from like New York City, and that's to the extent of what Lolo knows me. And so Lolo, I just, I'll let you chat a chat because like our relationship has also kind of evolved, but we met at the gym. So go ahead. And yeah.
I mean, our most authentic selves, right?
Yeah, sweaty and gross after spin class.
No, but I like how that really ties into, I mean, we met in a common area of interest and that we're both dedicated to our self-care. And then I think that transferred into me getting to know you, going from kind of a personal to professional level and seeing the common areas there. And I've really learned from you as far as how important that mentorship is. I mean, excuse me. I mean, just seeing how hard you work and just continuing to that continuous and that willingness to learn is what really drives me. And One example, as far as with mentorships, I mean, I had an experience with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I don't know if is everyone familiar with the organization?
Yeah.
And so I got to serve as a mentor to a high school student, where to touch on that organicness in a mentorship, any relationship. I really enjoyed that part of the book, by the way, or the chapter that you sent. And my, I guess, mentee, she was a cheerleader like I was in high school. And I felt that we really connected, and that we knew how to shine in our, like, where we felt most passion, but still be kind of shy behind the scenes when we weren't performing. And so I think I was able to really connect with her on that level, to kind of bring her out and really show her, really boost her confidence. And I think she maybe even went to try out to be her cheer captain. And so really pushing, but also in an organic way, as far as like, you got this, you can do this, I'm here to encourage you.
Yeah, no, I think that's
So all about the positive outcome.
Yeah, no, I think you talk about, all of you said the same word, organic, right? And so I think that's really important, because I think there are people come up to me and I'm like, oh, would you please be my mentor? Would you be my sponsor? And I kind of get just, it's like, wow, I don't really know you. And that seems like a really huge commitment to kind of, get to someone. And I tend to, you're right, gravitate to that relationship a little bit more organically. But there's a lot of times within companies and corporations and just other organizations out there to try to create these formalized mentorship programs and things like that. And I'm sure you guys have had that experience as well. Maybe you can kind of comment around, what has worked and what hasn't, and how do you think the best way is, like, to find that mentor or that sponsor, right? For people who are really thinking like, wow, I really want a mentor, I really want that sponsor. How do you find that? How do you kind of build onto that relationship, and what's kind of the best approach to find that? I don't know who wants to go start, but
I can start.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah. You mentioned about those mentorship program in corporations. I've been part of some of those in different companies. I would say they work, but it depends, right? There are situations that on paper, when they match you with this mentor, on paper it works. But once you meet the mentor, the personal sparks was just not there. The energy was not on the same level, and that it's probably going to be a 5-session sponsorship, but it's not going to be like a long-term, meaningful sponsorship for life. So that's my immediate thought in terms of corporate sponsorship. But in terms of like finding personal sponsorship, and how do you find that in the company or any kinds of work environment, again, like, I think the best way is to stay curious and to get to know as many people as possible, because once you talk to people, you can get a sense of who they are immediately, and then you can decide whether you want to deepen that relationship or not. And when you are trying to find a sponsor, if you find someone who, let's say, you really click with, my to-go is usually think about what I can offer to them. I usually start with a question: how can I help you? How can I support your journey? Instead of asking, can you be my sponsor? Can you help me? Can you be my mentor? I think that is a much better way to build a connection and build a relationship, of trying to offer up something instead of immediately asking for something.
Anyone want to add to that?
I think it definitely promotes that organicness, that wanting to build an organic relationship, rather than just coming to someone and just saying, what can you give me? I mean,
right.
Not saying that, but just usually you can tell those that really want to make the effort when they want to make it as mutually beneficial as possible.
Has anyone had a moment where it's gone bad or it's gone south? Sorry, go ahead, Everald. Yeah.
Oh, no, the only thing I wanted to say, it's all about that common denominator, or the common connective point. And, if you are in a formal mentorship program, sometimes it can be very transactional. So I really do believe it's all about finding the common touch point between the person, whether that's you have the same title that I want to have in the next 5 or 10 years, or I see that you're interested in golf or interested in basketball. I'm interested in golf and basketball. You really have to find that connected touch point for, I believe, for the mentorship program to really work. Because at that point, if you don't, you're just really in a transactional experience with the person.
Cool.
Where you don't feel that they're trying to target to you and your strengths and interests.
Right.
Yeah. Andrew, anything you want to add, or?
I think like for me, I don't have a lot of experience with like more formal mentorship programs. I think for me, like one thing that I always try to do or seek out is just I do a lot of like I do a lot of observing, I guess, kind of like behind the scenes. Like you see like how people like interact with others, like how do they present, like how do they do they are they empathetic? Like do they like take people's do they treat like relationships as transactional or more like holistic? How do they just like how do they operate and like what are the results that come from that? And is that something that like aligns to the way that I work and want to like be perceived by others? And I think that's like a good test to find maybe the right folks. Because I guess like on paper, like you could have all of these things that align, but you kind of have to see it like in real life and see how it manifests and like effects of actions like downstream as well too. So I think that's something that has worked for me, at least in terms of seeing like, oh, I never want to, align with this person or work with this person, looking for those kinds of things. And to your point, Jenny, I think like asking questions, being curious, not just what's in it for me, but or I have a problem, but coming up with that point of view, like your own point of view, and testing it and seeing, does it resonate? Does it align with my potential sponsor and mentors, like their own values and how they work? So I think that's really important.
Question for you guys, like, a lot of us have met, had a chance to really meet in person, especially you, Andrew and Everald, right? Like we all worked together at a time when things were quote unquote normal, right? Before the pandemic and during the pandemic and through. And as you guys have like, been in different organizations and just really different points in your life as well, right? How hard is it right now, like given like hybrid situations or just coming back from post-pandemic to get that sponsorship or mentorship? Just any thoughts around that, or observations that you want to add around mentorship and sponsorship post-pandemic?
I think it could still happen, but you just need to be much more thoughtful and much more curated, because a lot of time people are not in the office anymore, even though there are some companies, yes, they have mandatory in office, but for those which are not in office, you really need to kind of do your research and very curated and very thoughtful about who you want to reach out, B, when you reach out, what are you going to say? So I would say networking in a virtual world still work, but I just need to be much more thoughtful about that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think one thing for me, obviously the company I work for, like the major office hubs are on the coasts now, and I live in Colorado. I live in Denver. There's not many teammates here, so to your point, Jenny, I don't get to like go in and bump into people organically as much. So whenever there's opportunities to travel and like go to events, conferences, whatever it may be, just being intentional, even if you are maybe feeling a little introverted that day or tired from all this stuff going on, just taking advantage of a happy hour or a dinner. One, I love food, so I'm going to go anyway. But I think just like, you never know what's going to happen, right? I think like, especially the world of, marketing, technology, consulting, all that stuff, it's such a small world, and you never know, who you might stumble upon, or, and also in that same vein, just not being afraid to talk about your interests as a person and a human and show that you're not just a square on Zoom. This is ironic, but yeah, I think just like being open to those things and those chance encounters, I think is important. And I think that's something I didn't really have to think about as much until I moved to, I guess, a more remote location. But I think that's huge.
Yeah. Everald, anything to add, or?
Yeah, to Andrew's point, it's all around intentionality. I'm in the same boat where, where I live, it's, my company hubs are on the coast. So I do have to travel. I do have to attend conferences or even client meetings and be very, very intentional about my presence, and speaking to the right people and connecting with the right people or the people I want to connect with. So I think the hybrid or the remote approach does create a little bit of a barrier, but I think you have to just be more intentional about meeting the people or being in front of people or just getting the right experiences out of your approach and really just being intentional about being in the right places essentially.
Yeah. Lolo, anything to add?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think just to tie into, it's great to have that hybrid flexibility now, but more so when I'm tailoring my interactions to those I may not have the chance to be connecting with in person, at least not right away. Instead of an email, instead of a phone call, I usually first approach will say, when can we set up a Zoom?
Yeah.
So just to even if we can't meet in person, next best thing there, like when possible.
I like the fact that you said there's an intentionality around how to approach someone, and you look for opportunities, whether it's at a meeting or anything like that, and conferences. For other folks out there, who come tell me and say, they're either like intimidated to like approach me or approach someone, which is, I'm probably the last person to be intimidated by, which is always surprising because I'm so, I think I'm so approachable. I think I'm just like that puppy dog. Andrew, you've been in that situation where you've had to yank me out before, so that was your job. And it's like I feel like I'm super approachable. So when people say they're intimidated by me, it just makes me laugh, or it just kind of anyway. But I can understand that from someone who is looking at someone very seasoned, and when you talk about intentionality and you're meeting people, how hard is it? And maybe just viewing from your perspective, right? Are people really open, approachable? Like, have you gone to a point of like rejection? Like, what advice would you give someone who is trying to muster up that strength to ask someone or approach someone that they admire or that they really want to connect with?
I think most people are approachable. Honestly, I think most people are approachable. We're all human beings at the end of the day. Everyone, as long as you're a human being, you want connection. You want good connections. And you just need to think about that. What can you offer to that person? Whether it's personally, if this person like arts or sports, offer to take them out for a gallery or for a sports event. And those are the personal touch point that you could make this connection much more organic, much more, much less transactional. So yeah, those are my immediate thought for that.
Lolo's like laughing. Christine's such a cheap date. I'm gonna take you to a sunset walk on the beach.
Or I'm just thinking, you intimidated? That's the shock of this conversation for me, Christine.
People, I don't know. Like Andrew and Everald can probably. Andrew, you had a line. You made a good business, right? Like Andrew was my gatekeeper for a really long time. So it was awesome. You had to get to me. You had to go through Andrew and Everald. That's scary. It was awesome. Anyway, Everald, Andrew, I'll let you guys talk. And add.
Yeah, I think people tend to respond like pretty well to you if it's clear that you've maybe like done some research, or like you maybe care about something that they've done in the past, or like something that you can speak to in terms of their work or their interests. For example, there's a leader at my company now who wrote a book that like was adapted into a TV show, and I watched the TV show and I was able to like speak to him about that. And I think that's maybe like maybe like a lesser known fact about him. The show was like a little too real for me in certain aspects in terms of work and whatnot, but we were able to laugh about that. I think also for me coming from like Minneapolis as well too, that's something that you can make fun of in terms of like the weather and stuff or sports. And I think like those are kind of like natural segues into things that are very human. And it's kind of cliche to like talk about the weather, but there's always something to make fun of when it comes to Minnesota sports and weather, which has worked for me quite a bit. And I think that's something that you know has is maybe like a sticking point for some people in terms of like remembering maybe like the first time they talked to me or something. They're like, oh, you know, Minnesota, that's weird. Like, why would you live there? And I think just like drawing on those things that are like very normal or like maybe even mundane sometimes, you never know like what people might latch onto. So
Sure.
yeah, people are, I think, generally more receptive than you might think. So
Cool.
And good point on sports that I feel like that's one common denominator, and no matter how much or little you pay attention to it, there's something to talk about.
Sure.
And it's, I think one thing to Andrew's point that's super important, right, is always having the ability to just understand someone else's story as well, right? Like similar to his coworker and the book and the TV, everyone has a story. And I think what works well is when you have the ability to just connect with someone and just say, "Hey, I want to learn about you." You know, it may sound a little creepy at first, but you're really coming from the angle of, "Hey, I just, you know, let's talk, let's be humans, and let's grab coffee or let's grab a drink or whatever the beverage of choice is," and really just diving deeper into like who that person is, because at the end of the day, you know, work or sports or whatever isn't just a story, right? There's always something behind it, and I always found that to be the encapsulating piece that I've leveraged of what's your story? But let's just hear more about it. Where do you live? You know, what do you do, and what do you travel? And I think that's always a good connective touch point, and that's worked for me. Is, you know, I travel, so being able to always connect across cultures and across different languages, and just having kind of the travel angle and really just connecting on that touch point and being more culturally aware of it has been more of the, I would say, best approach that I've taken advantage of lately.
Cool. Yeah, that's kind of all the questions I had. Am I missing anything in terms of like
If anything, Christine.
advice that you would, you know, give out to the next generation? I know you guys are probably itching to ask me questions, so there's that too. Am I missing anything, guys? I'm looking at Andrew because
If anything, I just wanted to add, like going to your event last year in LA, just really approaching anyone and just starting the conversation there, and then you just need a little bit of something to really like just connect and get the conversation going and learn about the person you're talking to.
That's true.
Again, the story behind it.
I think there's a little bit of courage if I go back to like my younger self, right? You just have to put yourself out there, and take the leap and take the risk to be bold enough to talk to someone and approach them, and just take that pedigree or whatever, you know, starstruckness out the door, and you're right, and just realize that people are human, and just, you know, and start talking to them, and find that commonality from a human perspective to connect. I think that's really what it is, because there are times in, gosh, I think my 16-year-old self, the first time I met my singing teacher, I couldn't breathe. She was in front of me, and I was like, I just literally could not breathe. I was like, I want to be you, and I couldn't even talk to her, and it was I was just so in awe of her, and then, you know, to now have that kind of relationship that I have with her is really crazy. But I remember, like, you know, 15, 16, and she's sitting in front of me, like, just like frozen, in awe and stardom. And, you know, it took me a while to just kind of muster up that strength. So, but thank you guys so much for your time. I know I owe all of you a phone call. Andrew, I owe you a longer phone call. And so thank you so much for your time and for doing this. I truly appreciate you guys, and thank you. So you obviously you'll get copies of the book.
Thank you. It was such an honor to be part of your journey and being part of this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is probably the biggest, most courageous leap I'm ever going to take. Is this book? Is really this book. And I don't think it's hit me yet. So, but you know, I appreciate all of you so much, and just really just excited that you guys are doing so well, and you know, and we'll connect soon. So thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Christine. Great to meet you all.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
My pleasure.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to my podcast. I hope this has inspired you to continue the fight for equality, challenge stereotypes, and lift as we climb. Amplify the conversation on social media, following at DuquesaCD and DuquesaCD.com. #Shattering Glass in Heels.